What is going on, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the weekly Sunday Amazon Q&A show where we share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, and of course, the most important thing, we are here to answer your questions about selling on Amazon. So if you're curious about retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, or perhaps you've just got a Keepa quandary, well, drop it in the chat and we'll be happy to help any way we can. Now, for those of you who may be new here, my name is Chris Grant, and to my right is my rejuvenescent co-host, Chris Rasick. Chris, how's your Sunday treating you, man?
Sunday's pretty good. Good to see you again. I got to tell you, it's too unique not to share here. I always find it interesting when you have things that you've never said before in your entire life, right? And I had another one of those today. It's Sunday, and we do a little bit of cleaning around the house and kind of getting ready for the week and stuff. And I said this: if you're going to bring your ukulele into the bathroom to play while you poop, make sure you take your ukulele out of the bathroom when you're done. I know for a fact I've never uttered that sentence before in my life. That's one of one.
Yeah, that is it's amazing the things that have to be said when you have children. And of course, now I can't get I'm just envisioning, standing outside of a bathroom door and hearing Over the Rainbow being played on a ukulele while someone's using the restroom.
Yeah, somewhere over the rainbow, or tiptoe through the tulips. I'm not sure what my ukulele pooping tune would be. So it's a good question.
That is a good question. Hey, Polly. Hey, Ryan. Glad to see you guys. And of course, anybody who's here, if you guys have questions, make sure to drop them. We are here to help any way we can, and that's what it is. That's what it's all about. As we kind of get rolling here, I thought one of the very first things I would bring up is if it bleeds, it leads, and it's always bad news. And we hear that quite often as Amazon sellers. We hear it as consumers of media. And you actually have to go digging for this kind of stuff. But I found some good news. Consumer sentiment is up at the beginning of the year. They're feeling optimistic about the economy. And consumer sentiment rose 2.1% to 54% in early January. It's the highest level since September of 2025. The January reading marked the second straight month the index improved as well. Consumers' view of the current economic conditions rose 4% to 52.4. The index of consumer expectations edged up 0.7% to 55 from 54.6. So, you and I don't know. I feel like it's almost our duty to beat back all of the bad news that you hear, because to find this information, I had to wade through, well, here's where unemployment numbers are, and here's where underemployment numbers are, and here's where we're expecting to see inflation go, and all of that stuff. And then finally, I was able to dig out a little piece of good news. And it's unfortunate that we have to dig this out. But I think it's important because we've seen Q4 numbers go up. We saw Q3 numbers go up. Everyone was saying, oh, well, tariffs, inflation, it's going to hit us, one way or another. And it just kept not happening. And now tariff concerns seem to be dying down. Consumer sentiment is moving back up. And this information will actually play into the next piece of news as well.
Yeah, I wonder. I wish they gave a little bit of analysis, which it's a lot to ask for with this kind of data. But yeah, I wonder if it's just kind of a buttoning things up after a holiday season. Maybe it's we rolled our eyes over the number of times that we had to say concerns about tariffs. So I wonder if there was just so much preloading angst of tariffs that finally, maybe they got through the holiday season. We know buy now, pay later was up. I mean, maybe people executed a more responsible Q4 based on the fears, and now as the bills are coming in and everything, the dust is settling on the holiday season, maybe more consumers pulled it off, responsibly, with an increase in spend overall. Maybe they just maybe there was enough looming bad news, just for a long enough period that kind of kept it under control. So when the credit card bills come in January and you get the check from the Christmas season, maybe it wasn't that bad. And if it's not that bad, I have to think that that's a good sign for the numbers in Q1.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now I'm going to bring something up because I'm curious of your take on it, but I want to preface this to everybody. Okay. I don't I don't care about the politics or anything like that. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care who you didn't vote for. I don't care what you think about anybody. But there's something interesting that came out over the weekend. And the president has, and of course, we need to remember this is just something he posted. And it's probably what I mentioned to someone who reposted it was I would imagine that this is some price anchoring, that's a very common tactic that is used when you're, talking about negotiating and things like that. But the president came out and said, I'm going to limit credit card usury rates to 10%. Now, my thought process was a couple of things. Number one, I do think that's some price anchoring. I don't think that you're going to get it down to 10%. There is historical data that shows that increasing the usury rates or allowing increased usury rates actually made credit cards more accessible and available to more people. And there's going to be a point where they would perhaps pull back on higher risk credit card users, things like that. Those are all things that could happen. But I know that consumers would probably really like something like that. It would make the cost of borrowing cheaper if they were eligible to have credit cards, even if maybe that meant I've got to have a little less credit available to me. What are what are your thoughts? Well, one other worry I have is what happens to if this were to go into effect. I worry what happens to cash back. Worry what happens to points and miles and things like that. And so I wanted to get your take. Is this good, bad, indifferent if something like this were to come down the pike?
I believe it was presented as temporary, correct?
I believe it was presented as a 1 year, like 10% cap. Yes.
Okay, for 1 year. Typically, this is something that would be done during a difficult economic time. This is kind of a stopgap during bad economic turns. Primarily, I want to know what the spark for this is.
Mm-hmm.
How well thought out is this? Is it just a short term kind of thinking that it's going to boost spending? So we get a small economic bump in the numbers in the short term, or is it is there something to read in between the lines?
Mhm.
Are we running into an issue with our collective debt service as consumers? I don't know the answer to that. That's just curiosity. I think long term it's dangerous. That's severely. So what you're doing, if you're capping 10% on the credit cards, you're capping the income for the institutions that issue credit. So if that goes into place, you've now reached into their pocket and taken some of their money. So now they're going to have to be extra careful with who they extend credit to. So I could see them getting very, very conservative. I could see new credit becoming very difficult to obtain because the higher interest rates, the people who get higher interest rates are higher risk. That's the trade-off for the institutions. So if you're capped at 10%, you're only going to take the best of the best. Your 600 credit scores, you're not getting credit. They're going to serve every 700 score, every 800 score out there first, because you don't have extra interest in case of default. So I think long term it's dangerous as far as credit availability across the board. So that would be my primary concern, and I'd question if it's necessary. Like with these spending numbers, with the numbers ticking up, all of this stuff, outpacing expectations. I'm not sure what the benefit would be. Yeah, without without speculating on the political ramifications and the cashing in on some headlines in the short term.
Yeah. Yeah. And that part I didn't want to go down, because I thought about that as well,
Mhm.
Uh, one of my other fears was, could that make the economy too hot? There is, I mean, you got to have some guardrails both on, shrinking the economy and growing the economy. You grow it too fast and you can have, stagflation, things like that. And that can be just as bad as inflation. So yeah, I thought it was curious. And I tried to do a little bit of research, and it none of it was necessarily like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and if it does in some form or another. I am curious what it holds for shopping and spending, and what consumers do with that.
Mhm.
All right, let's answer a question here, and then I got another piece of interesting news. So, Jeff, hey guys, how hard is it to add a variation to a listing nowadays? Do you need special permission to do this? Have you ever seen good results from adding a variation or a listing that is not on Amazon? It is definitely not as easy as it once was. Um, Matter of fact, I don't even, without brand approval, I'm not sure that you can any longer. Um, I know you're not going to be able to create a new listing without, brand registry or brand approval. Adding a variation, I've seen it happen sometimes, but it's very rare. Um, and typically it's by uploading a flat file. But and Jeff, you've been around for a while, and I think I have a feel for where you might be, yeah, in your Amazon business and your journey. But I would imagine it's probably not time well spent where you're at. It probably would be, you'd probably be better served to go look at 20 or 30 or even 50 other ASINs and find the ones that you don't have to do that kind of work for. I was thinking about this actually. I brought this up to someone today. um they were asking a question about a variation and whether or not I would sell it and things like that. And what I explained my whole reasoning. Like, these are the several reasons that I think it would actually be a pass. I said, but when it boils down to it, this gets put into it's kind of a too difficult of a decision to make pile. And so I want to move away from that as quickly as possible. Um, is it a good idea to tackle difficult problems? Yes, often. But sometimes, especially in terms of like adding a new product to Amazon where you don't necessarily have control, you don't know what might happen to the price. Maybe you're only going to be able to sell 10 units. Then it becomes that's a problem that's too difficult to deal with. And so we just push that one off into a pile and leave it under the rug where all the other problems are supposed to stay.
Yeah, I think the long-term prospects is going to dictate what the right answer is for Jeffrey. If it's a matter, because sometimes as a new seller, you and I'm not saying this is where you're at, Jeffrey, and that's why you're asking, but like I remember as a new seller, you'd find an ASIN, but you'd find it in a shade or a scent or a size that wasn't listed, and you're like, oh, everything else is so good, and you're just trying to shove it into being a good lead simply because you found it, and it's kind of based on frustration, and you're like, oh, if only this variation was there, and to and that echoes your answer, is like you're probably better off just to keep going rather than trying to shoehorn this thing in, because you don't know what's going to happen. It's unlikely that you're the only one that found that color. So if you bring it onto the market, there's a bit of unpredictability. Once it starts showing up, if it does get some traction, anything could happen. It essentially becomes a new listing with no historical data to guide your decision. So it feels like the way to go. You're kind of hoping that there's an easy answer to add a variation, and you make a little bit of money. But if it is a ton of work and you're only going to sell about 10 units, to your point, that's you got to weigh that, if the time spent is worth the potential profit. It's kind of when you take on decisions that are a bit gray, that kind of play a little bit with your account health. I remember the conversations that we have with seller basics and stuff. That's always their default question: is the profit going to be worth the long-term risk? Now, obviously, the conversations with seller basics, there's a lot more on the line than simply add a variation, but it's the same. It's still a good test.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to this, if you have found a deal that is just too good to pass up and it's not available on Amazon, here's something I might actually do, because I don't want people to not have profits in their pocket. So what I would do is I would do a couple of things. Number one, I would do a search for the product. And if the product has some autocomplete available on Amazon, then there's very likely demand for the product. So I would then go and I would look at eBay and see who's already listed it over there and how often is it selling. Because if it is a product people are looking for and they can't find it on Amazon, there are enough people that still shop on eBay. You may be able to sell it there and sell it profitably. So I would always check there as well. And the reason I bring that up is if this were 5 years ago, my advice would probably be different. 5 years ago, I would create listings. And I use that exact method. If I came across something that wasn't on Amazon, but there was an autocomplete available for it, I'll give you a perfect example. Walgreens used to have disgusting candy corn in exclusive flavors like hot dog flavored candy corn and stuff like and taco flavored candy corn. And they would go viral, and nobody had created listings. So I would, because that autocomplete was there. But those items sold very well on eBay as well.
I remember, wasn't there a Thanksgiving dinner candy corn at one point?
There was a Thanksgiving dinner. There was a taco truck. There was a, I think there was like a baseball, or it was either a barbecue or a baseball themed one with like hot dogs and ketchup. Yeah.
Oh, come on, Luke. Luke better be typing right now, because this is like, I don't know if this is, I don't know which way he would go with this, because he likes candy corn. But I don't know, hot dog, stadium hot dog might be might be crossing the line.
But the Thanksgiving ones, I see him throwing those back. You take some pumpkins, some turkey, some green beans, and toss them all back. And it's like the what was that? Man, it wasn't an everlasting gobstopper, but there was a candy in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that
Right.
had an entire meal.
Right. Yeah. But yet he ferments his own milk for gut health, but he's willing to eat candy that's made out of like old grout or something. I don't understand how those two coexist.
All right. Deal Hunter. Have you forgotten to take off the 75% sticker on the product before sending it to the customer, and have the customer claimed the sticker price? Yes, I have forgotten. It's actually been worse. Well, I think we're maybe on the same path here. I used to source at Meijer quite frequently, and Meijer would put on these orange price stickers on products. I bought 20 or maybe 30 pair of Skechers shoes that were like $5 a piece. They all had this orange sticker on them. And I forgot to look on the inside of the tongue of the shoe. I took the orange sticker off the box, but someone decided to put an orange sticker on the inside of the tongue on all 30 pairs. And they were $5, selling for like 50, 60 bucks. About 20% of those people who purchased from me got refunds. Not so that they had to pay $5. I was like, and this was at a time when you could talk some sense into customers a little bit, and you could have a little bit more back and forth. But I was like, listen, here are my actual costs. I paid $5 for the shoe. It cost me $5 to ship into Amazon. It cost me $5 to sell this product to you. How about I give you 30 bucks back? You're getting a deal. I'm not going to lose money, but I am going to break even based on my total cost of goods. And most everyone was happy except for like one person, which there's always one. But yeah, you learn that lesson once. You learn that lesson once. All right. And again, guys, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We want to answer them for you. Chris, you're gonna love this. I know you like this, but Gen Z plans to keep shopping in January and February. So even after the holidays, consumers are expected to remain active in the first 2 months of the year. 74% of consumers said that they are just as likely or even more likely to shop compared with other times of the year. And this is according to a new survey from Lightspeed Commerce. 51% of those people surveyed say their shopping behavior stays about the same, while 23% say they are more likely to shop during the beginning of the year. 26% of everyone who responded say that they are less likely to shop in January and February, and only 7% say they're much less likely to do so. Younger shoppers, or Gen Z, are actually leading the post-holiday shopping charge. 49% of shoppers aged 18 to 24 say that they're more likely to shop in January and February instead of pulling back. 11% of consumers age 55 plus, and I don't think that's quite boomer yet. I think that can be 55 is still
It's a little bit Gen X.
Gen X, yeah, elder Gen X. Uh, but in total, 94% of people aged 18 to 24 say they are the same or more likely to shop versus 70% of those aged 55 up. And Gen Z shoppers basically said it's a treat yourself economy. Their spending is driven by a reset mentality. 61% of them want to prioritize health, fitness, or wellness purchases, which is more than twice the overall average. 52% say that they're going to prioritize a clothing or a wardrobe refresh compared to 37% overall. And then 48% of people who are Gen Z, 18 to 24, said that they actually made a New Year's resolution related to shopping. 44% of them said they want to spend a little bit more intentionally. 38% are focusing on purchases on items that support other resolutions like health, fitness, learning, or starting a new hobby. Source of this survey is from Lightspeed Commerce. Lightspeed Commerce. Um, so yeah, Gen Z wants to go out and spend. Uh, and this goes right along. I was reading another article about gourmand fragrances, and not just fragrances that you wear, but fragrances for around the house as well. And how Gen Z is picking those up. They want fresh gourmand fragrances, um, and new clothes. It's crazy. These kids are just out spending money like water.
Well, we can't you can't saddle them as irresponsible yet because they're the
No.
ones that understand the risks with buy now pay later. They've had generations ahead of them, uh, just moaning. Just all the wealth resentment that we see from the millennial crowd. They've kind of taken this all in, and they've emerged. Most of the Gen Z information that we see is kind of founded in their frugality. So this
Hmm.
may be a little bit of just like you said, treat yourself. Because they were responsible. Going back to my speculation on the previous piece of news, maybe they just behave themselves financially, and now they have a little bit extra, and they've got things under control, and they want to they're taking the new year, new you seriously, and they're going to go out and buy that special fragrance to wash the dishes, or vacuum the living room. And I don't know if I don't know how I feel about that, around the house fragrances, but that's all right.
I'm not gonna judge too much on the gourmand house fragrances because when I was a kid, I remember having to sprinkle the carpet with the smelly powder before it got vacuumed.
Sure.
So I'm not going to give them too hard of a time there. And I see Deal Hunter saying I love Gen Z. I do too. I think it's a generation that doesn't necessarily think they're going to be able to afford a home. And so what we're seeing is yes, they are being frugal, but they are spending money. But if I'm not mistaken, they've got a pretty high savings rate and a pretty high investment rate.
Mhm.
I would almost imagine that a ton of Gen Z has the Robinhood app or something like that compared to other generations. Um, so
Yep.
yeah, I'm not giving them a hard time. I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, I continue to applaud the generation and the moves that they make. It'll take some getting used to, from like our old for the standard protocols that we've had, kind of ingrained in us for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like how they're approaching things.
Yeah.
I saw somebody, I saw a tweet or I don't know, a Facebook post or something like that. And it said, it basically painted a scenario, and it said, okay, if you're going to buy a house, and depending on where you're at, if you're going to buy, if you have a family or something, you could be looking at upwards of $400,000 or more, depending on the area, of course. So I think that this is based on like a $500,000 house. 20% down would be $100,000 as your down payment. So they basically posed putting 20% down on a $500,000 house versus renting, having all the maintenance taken care of for you and whatnot, and then putting that $100,000 into a savings account. They used a rather aggressive 14% interest rate, which all right. But even if you whittle it down to, a conservative, 7%, if I don't think anybody would give me a hard time about 7% annualized return. And then you make $7,000 a year. You could probably find something comparable between what the house payment on a $400,000 loan would be versus, the rent payment on similar square footage and beds and baths. So yeah, it's not a bad argument, like just keep that money, make 7,000 on it, or whatever you end up, if you end up getting 10% back, depending on how you have it invested, $10,000 a year on that nest egg. There are worse ideas.
As someone who owns a home and is in need of replacing a pantry door, I sometimes I miss renting. All right. Let's see here. Lounginger. I don't usually focus on Valentine's Day specifically. Have you guys made that part of Q1 sourcing? I've only heard stories about how good bundles can be, but I've never bothered to go down that road. Bundles are no more. You can't make bundles anymore. Are there some bundles out there? Yeah, but they're probably against terms of service. Now, would I say go list on one of them if you're ungated? If the brand is right and things like that, but you have to know that there are some risks like that listing getting removed without any notice. Um, so that's one of the like I will still source for a bundle, but I would never go deep on a bundle listing because I know that it could be pulled down at any time, especially if it's a consumable. Um, Now, do I source specifically for Valentine's Day? I don't know that I necessarily do anymore. Um, there are a lot of people who, it seems like there are a lot of people who really like hunting seasonal items, and they tend to become a race to the bottom fairly quickly. Now, am I going to step over dollars if they happen to show up in the time of my regular sourcing? No, absolutely not. But I prefer just to go after the stuff that is going to be, singles and doubles on a daily basis rather than chase something that I'm going to be in and out of, and not, I'll make money, but I know that it's going to be it's going to be some tanking and stuff like that because there's only such a short season for it. It's not even. I mean, Valentine's Day is one day. It's not like peppermint candy or candy canes. Like nobody's gonna buy. Like people buy candy canes all year long, and people buy candy canes for an entire quarter out the wazoo. Nobody wants that heart shaped chocolate except for right at Valentine's Day.
Yeah, and you could make an argument that I mean I'm not sure. I'm not assuming that you have your car keys in your hand and you're about to run to a Walgreens or something if we would have said yes. But it's probably way late in the game to be sourcing Valentine's Day right now. Because typically, that stuff's probably going to be bought. It probably needs to be ready to roll. And I don't know what 3 weeks. It is about the end. So I mean, you'd be challenged to get it in there and have it prime eligible right now. But I honestly, I've never sourced specifically for Valentine's Day, like in advance, with the thought of having it ready at a fulfillment center for Valentine's Day. But I actually prefer grabbing it on clearance after Valentine's Day and getting those super, which is kind of my MO for all these holidays, Christmas candy, Halloween candy. I love sourcing Halloween candy in November. You start getting these bags, they mark them down to a quarter, just ridiculous discounts. And it's not, I'm not going to build a business that way, but I can grab a lot of units for a very little price. And the ROI is going to be fantastic, whatever I can end up moving. So,
yeah, the one Valentine's Day candy that will sell after Valentine's Day, without a doubt, is heart-shaped Reese's cups, because any Reese's where there is even more peanut butter is a better Reese's.
do we need to run the calcs, or is there more surface area on a heart rather than? Are you gonna at that point, are you gonna go for the heart, or do you just hold out for the Easter egg, where
I personally,
you don't have the little dip of the heart to take away some of the chocolate?
I personally would just hold out for the Easter egg.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that is the best one. And the Easter egg is pretty close to the football shaped one, so those are okay too. All right, Lounzinger. So what I'm taking away from the news is looks maxing is in, off to source some mewing implements. Of course, I get it. Nobody wants to be told who their choppelganger is. So
I saw that today.
yeah. All right. Sound of Music. Why do I find I'm ungated for a product/brand on some detail pages for the same brand for different products on other detail pages, even though the brand is shown to be the same? Do you think it has to do with the way the detail page was created? I notice that the pages that have a brand store tend to be the ones I need to ask for approval. There are a couple of reasons this could happen. The one that I am thinking of right off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a very specific brand that I like to sell. And I know that I am gated on some and I'm ungated on others. I'm also going to guess that you're using SellerAmp. And the reason that I am gated on some and not the others is that some of them are transparency enabled. And they need a transparency label on them for me to be able to sell them. I don't take the risk of ordering items because I've been burned, So those ones I just skip right on over. But that's probably what you're noticing. Chris, you were on it. He would definitely test the flavored candy corn.
Yep, I knew it. It's a weird little hippie, Luke is.
Truth Right. What are your thoughts on closeouts? Closeouts can be fine as long as you're not buying them from Jim Bob out of a double wide in the middle of the country. I mean, closeouts are going to be from places like, and I'm talking arbitrage here, not necessarily buying closeouts from some other supplier, but Ollie's, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, grocery outlet. Trying to think of some others here. Didi's Discounts, Gabe's Outlets, and man, I'm missing
Big Lots.
Well, yeah, I guess the ones that are still open, Big Lots, and there's another B, but I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
Burlington.
Burlington, thank you. Those are all closeouts, is what those are. Those people are buying stuff that other stores couldn't sell.
Fragrance Net.
Or yeah, fragrant, yeah. I mean, there's tons of places that buy closeouts. So yes, closeouts are fine. Receipts on closeouts are often okay and work just fine. They work from Ollie's. They work not to necessarily get ungated, but for inauthentic purposes and IP complaints. Ollie's, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, all of those places have worked without a problem. So I'm all about it as long as you vet your source. Because again, if someone reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I sell closeouts," was it something that they actually fell off the back of a truck and they call it a closeout, or is it coming from a legit source?
Yeah. Or is it scratch and dent, essentially liquidation that they're trying to reframe it as closeouts?
Mm-hmm.
Truth Right, you asked a question a few shows ago, right at the end, that we didn't get to, and you asked what gray market goods are, and this is essentially what we're explaining. Closeouts would be considered gray market, because it's not the store. The store didn't contact the manufacturer or the brand directly. They're basically buying shelf pulls and stuff from other retail stores. So they're basically just taking other stores' clearance in bulk and then selling it at a discount. So the products are authentic. Just there's an extra stop in the chain of ownership.
Mm-hmm. Polly, I would say that all M&Ms are delicious. I don't discriminate on M&Ms. Although I'll tell you what, Chris, this is a little bit of an aside, but I think you guys might appreciate this. Chris, I think you'll appreciate this. My grandfather, this was his fourth wife, so that this may explain some things. Okay, but he convinced her that he could taste the color of M&Ms. And it was when the blue M&M came out. And so, she had him blindfolded at the kitchen table and put like 10 M&Ms in front of him, and he ate the M&Ms and he's like, no, that's not blue. And ate another one. No, that's not blue. And then ate a blue one. Oh, that's blue. And she's like, oh, okay, lucky guess. And, went down the line and there were like two more. He got them right every single time. She was very, very upset when she found out several years later that someone was tapping his foot under the table.
See, now there's a whole that's a whole TikTok category now. That's social media content that people are craving.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Rasic, I hear you talk about only doing FBA. Is there a podcast where you talk about how you do this? I'm very interested in trying to go this route in the future.
Is there it's difficult to answer because essentially everything that I talk about from my experience as an Amazon seller is through the lens of, FBA. Yeah, I don't even know where to go with this. All of them would be the best answer, which is no help at all. Yeah, I don't I don't know if you have access to the sourcing videos that I do on Mondays. I don't know if you're a member of OAC Plus or not. That's me doing what I do for my store, just sharing my screen, and everybody just gets to look over my shoulder. I mean, that's my exact process. That's what I thought. Because it's the type of video that I would have wanted when I was a new seller. I want to see somebody who has successfully, shipped inventory in and over again, has some reps in. I'd want to see them come across a product that they go, yes, I'm in on this. And I'd want them to see, no, this is what I don't like about this. This is why I'm kicking it out. Just real life reps over the shoulder. That's kind of how I saw the value of that show when we originated the idea for it. So, I mean, I don't have a tidy little, I don't think, Chris, I don't think we've ever done just so probably the closest thing would be how to build $1 million store.
Yeah, it's very possible. And
Yeah.
AMZ with me, here's what I would suggest. You said how you do this. Like, if you're looking for like a video on like how to create an inbound shipment or something like that, like let us know. That's something I don't think that Chris and I would do a podcast on that, but I could create a video like that. That's no problem. Um, but I'm also wondering, did you mean why we use FBA only? That would be because that's there are reasons for that, and that those are different than how you do it. JP, my FBA returns are going to liquidation and selling for pennies. How do I request that my returned items come back to me, and when is it worth it? Um, well, if the items are being damaged or something like that, um, I guess it depends what you believe you would be able to get out of them. For example, let's say that you sell shoes. Well, if the items come back and Amazon says that they've been damaged, then you might be able to sell them on eBay and still get more than you would get from liquidation. But the other thing is that Amazon also makes mistakes. I was actually looking at my returns report a little bit earlier today, and I sell this product for around $200. Um, one of them got returned, and it said that it was customer damaged. It also said that Amazon put it right back into my inventory. So, like, they're kind of it. I mean, they're kind of idiots when it comes to figuring out what is good and what is not. So personally, I would try to have as many returns sent back to you as possible. I have none of mine go to liquidation, because there's a lot of stuff that you could probably send back into Amazon, and there's probably a lot of stuff that you could sell on other platforms in used or like new condition. About the only thing that I get returned to me that I don't sell on another platform is like I'll get lip liners back that some lady decided to just some guy, whatever, I'm not judging. Whoever used it decided to just like use a quarter of the lip liner and then return it because they didn't like the color or something. Um but everything like a bunch of stuff goes back to Amazon, a bunch of stuff sells on eBay. Liquidation is probably not worth your time. And if you can't do that, there are reverse logistics companies that will take your returns and deal with them for you for a fee.
Yeah. I mean, I rarely use liquidation. Sometimes I'll if it's a low priced item, and it's becoming pretty well aged. There are times where I'll opt for liquidation in that circumstance, just to not have to take the cost on having it shipped back to me, and knowing that there's really not much money, even if I do find an outlet for it myself. But yeah, the rate, the figuring out the ratio of, okay, the extra work that I'm going to have to put in to actually sell this on another platform. Yeah, it's pretty big before I would consider liquidation as the better option. And especially when you make a good point, because a lot of the stuff that's coming back is going to be able to go right back into Amazon and be sold as new. Because think about it. If you're, like Amazon's trying to pitch this grade and resell stuff, these are the people that mark your box as having 0 units in it. That's who you're trusting to grade and decide whether it could be resold. How do you feel about that? The answer to that question may make the answer of is liquidation worth it a little bit clearer for you.
Yeah. And JP, I know you said you didn't choose that setting. That setting was forced upon you. You do need to go and change that manually. Hey, OA Hustle. Do you think FBA is more preferable in terms of handling returns? As a beginner, I feel FBM is manageable, but dealing with unsellable returns becomes a hassle. I mean, there are still unsellable returns that you have to deal with when it comes to FBA. Matter of fact, I'm looking at my death pile right now because I have not yet outsourced it, although I probably should. So there are still going to be things that get sent back to you as unsellable. However, there are some things that do get put back into your inventory. So the number of items that get sent back to me compared to doing merchant fulfilled is lower. The other thing is I can use a prep center. I don't have to have inventory show up at my house. There's a lot of reasons that I use FBA outside of reverse logistics. It's just a better fit for my lifestyle at the moment. What software do you guys use to keep tabs of RA receipts? Google Drive. I use a I use a Fujitsu ScanSnap. I believe this is the IX100. Right there. So that scans in the receipts, and then they go into a Google Drive. Now, one thing that I would highly suggest is I would suggest taking the time to set up an automation with something like Google's Gemini or some other AI, whichever one you want. Actually, ChatGPT and several others have the ability to get into your Google Drive as well. But I would set it up so that you could maybe take a picture or take a scanned document and throw it into ChatGPT or into Google Gemini, have it read the receipt, and then have it auto put into the correct folder, rename the file, that kind of stuff. That's all doable now. That's a perfect use case for AI, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great method.
Oh, nice. Some of my extended family will be happy. They're very big Niners fans. And Chris, I am sorry about the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers are sorry, and that's the end of that sentence.
Lounzinger, do you guys recommend any ungating services? No, absolutely not. I'm sure that there is a legit place out there, but I worry way too much that they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we'll handle the invoices for you. And then if they use a dirty invoice, that's on you, not on them. So it is the path to getting ungated is well worn. It just sucks, like it's a sucky process, unfortunately, but it is very well worn. Sound of Music. When I buy from Ollie's or anywhere else, I investigate the customer reviews, return rates. I know most sellers don't care about that as long as there is demand. Let's see. In my opinion, the best case scenario is that the product is no longer manufactured, but there is still demand, as opposed to being liquidated cheaply because the manufacturer had all kinds of dissatisfied buyers. Yeah, that's fair. Um, I would the only pushback that I would give you is how much time are you spending doing that? Um, yeah, I would and one of the other things is a lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, if it doesn't have more than 3 stars, I'm not gonna sell it." But I've always gone the other direction because sometimes people are just irritated by the price. You'll see a new toy come onto Amazon during Q4 that is priced at twice MSRP and it's got a 1-star review, but it's selling like hotcakes. And that 1-star review is because, you know, you the seller ruined little Timmy's Christmas. Um, so yeah, I would, and also I just don't want you spending like an hour reading through reviews.
Yeah, I actually found I found a product. I'm the same way. Like I'll take a look at why something's rated pretty low, but it doesn't weigh heavily on whether I'm going to buy it or not. Um, I found one product. Something we don't talk about when when we're sourcing. And Chris, you and I, we've talked off air about different methods of sourcing and trying to turbocharge what we do and stuff. Um, but the one thing we don't talk about is having to trust when you're reverse sourcing, having to trust the judgment of the sellers that you're looking at, and reverse or and when I say reverse sourcing, don't think only storefront stocking. Storefront stocking is reverse sourcing, but reverse sourcing is more than just storefront stocking. Reverse sourcing is simply starting on the Amazon catalog and working your way out to the retail outlets and obtaining it. It's directional. But I found a product that I think it had like 2.5 stars, and so I saw it and I was like, what is this all about? Turns out, and it's a little bit tricky, but it was one of those things where it's uh, at best like hinted at that it's a 2-pack, and a seller is not going to, if the seller isn't paying attention, there were a lot of sellers that were selling it just as a 1-pack, which was infuriating a lot of customers, even multiple times. They returned the one and then they got 1 unit again, and they're like, which those reviews are always fun, like, what is wrong with you? This is the 3rd time. Like they think it's all just one person. um but I was actually able to find the 2-pack profitably, so I'm going to buy the 2-pack, send them in, and obviously I'm making less money than the sellers who aren't paying as much attention as I think they're getting. Um, but I'm going to make a bunch of customers happy, so I'm essentially operating, because I did my due diligence, I'm operating in the half of the people that are giving it 4 and 5 stars. The people who aren't paying attention and only sending 1 unit, they're the ones that are kind of eating that 1 to 2 star, so the average ends up being 2.5, but my customers are going to be happy. And then, sellers who aren't paying attention are going to keep pissing people off.
Mad Moo Dog, how about a video about the returns process? I will add it to the list. Yes. I can't remember if either of you have ever done RA or ever MF'd before. Why or why not? I used to be like 90% RA, maybe a little more at one point. So yes, I've done a lot of RA. We used to actually, some of my most favorite times was like renting a trailer and going out and doing RA because there was just so much of it. Have I done merchant fulfilled? Yes. Um, there was a time when I was younger and had a different lifestyle, and merchant fulfilling in Q4, like the young guns do now, was my life. Um, it was the first time a federal employee ever called me an asshole. Was not like a police officer; it was a USPS employee um, for bringing in packages that I was merchant fulfilling. I mean, I get it. It was busy. I didn't know about the, the scan form, and I'm like, "Hey, could I borrow a trolley to bring all these into you? And would you mind scanning all of these for me?" And he's like, "Oh, you're a real asshole, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." Uh, so
That's great. Heather, I've never merchant fulfilled anything ever. But yeah, I've only been 100% OA for a little over a year, like 14, 15 months tops. And I'd love to find the time to reinstall a regular RA system into my schedule. It's a bit of kind of letting Parkinson's law kind of limit my sourcing methods right now, but I will eventually get back to it. And I think my preferred ratio is somewhere around like 75% OA, 25% RA, maybe 2/3 and 1/3, 2/3 OA, 1/3 RA. I like it a lot. Especially I had it dialed in for a while, and I had specific stores that I went to on a regular basis, and I could space it out to give them about 2 weeks before I would hit them again. So it was ample opportunity for fresh inventory to show up. And I kind of had routes all together, and I was shipping out of my house. And I tell you what, I love when I have a prep center shipping hundreds of units on a regular basis, and then I'm able to once a week to send an RA shipment, with 100, 150 units or whatever it ended up being. Send those, so you feel like you've got boxes on trucks all the time. So you have stuff checking in all over the country, all at different times, and you never go more than felt like I never went more than a couple days without fresh inventory walking through a door at Amazon, and that's yeah. I kind of I got excited by that feeling.
that is one thing that I really like about Kim and Perry's operation. Kim and Perry Coughlin, they do, they're like 95% retail arbitrage, and they're shipping to FBA every single day, 5 days a week. If you can dial in and get that consistent, like, one, you're going to see, as a newer seller, you're going to see growth, but as a much more tenured seller, you are going to see some serious consistency in cash flow, which is, I mean, never a bad thing.
Yeah. And that's, it kind of gets back to when we talked about sourcing for like Valentine's Day, and you mentioned the Q4 FBM hustlers. It's, if you have that kind of system set up to where you're shipping on a regular basis, you can build a business that is consistent regardless of the calendar, right? And be careful how you think of that when you hear that statement, right? So, like a Q4 hustler is going to think, well, that sucks for you in November and December. I'm making a ton more money than you are. It's like, that's probably true. However, I'm still earning just as much January, February, March, and Q1 and Q2, right? And, I don't, my graphs don't look like this, and they're not dependent on me busting my hump during Q4. I've always liked the idea of a more consistent, just a constant flow of inventory and consistent earnings. I don't know. I don't know why that makes me feel better.
Yeah. And I mean, just because I don't think you're saying that you're not going to take advantage of Q4, because the Q4 bump is just going to be, it's just going to be a lagging measure of all that consistent work that you've put in anyway. Like you're going to see higher sales. Yeah. So, all right. Oh, no, not that one. MVSC. What do you recommend to do when Amazon I'm going to guess that the thing here is does not take your invoice after multiple times. The invoice Corningware sends has a header that has multiple brands and it looks like it's been altered. Here's my question to you is how many times, and I want you to answer this before I continue, but how many times have you submitted? That's what I need to know. Mike, do you toss the hard copy of the receipt? Yeah, I don't keep them in a file folder or anything. All right, more than 4 times. 2 ASINs for the same brand. Okay. So you're at a point, and I'm not saying this to be mean or anything like that, but you're at a point where you just have not submitted enough. I'm gonna call out, I think it was Harry in our OAC Plus community. Sorry, bear with me a second here.
What do you say, 73?
Let's see. Yes. Harry was ungated in grocery after 73 attempts. It's rough out here in these streets for ungating right now. It's just the way it is. Like, if you're not willing to submit 73 times, then getting ungated is not something that is going to happen. Now, what can you do? Okay. You obviously sent them the invoice. All right. Well, add in an order confirmation, add in the invoice, add in the shipping confirmation, the delivery confirmation, add them. And I see you're saying you reapplied 2 times, 73 times. Like, it's going to take some work. Okay. Add in shipping confirmation, delivery confirmation, add in a credit card statement, take a picture of the credit card you used to purchase the item with. And then start annotating and highlighting the item, and then handwriting the ASIN and the title of the product. And that should easily give you 30, 40, 50 different ways to send things in. Rename the file, the ASIN underscore invoice 1, ASIN underscore invoice 2. That way it's always a new file name. And then be ready to submit 73 times, because that's what it takes in today's ungating environment.
Is it, Chris, your opinion, is it worth it? Is it worth it to, if for no other reason, just to give yourself a new batch of documentation? Because MVSC, what you have to do is you have to get through the AI filters, right? So that's why you want to just change the name, even if it's an identical document, because they have automated filters that try to kick out duplicates automatically, right? So you need to get past that first gatekeeper. But Chris, my question is, would it be worth it to address the issue that they're having with the invoice? What are your thoughts of if you went to the website and took a screenshot of their homepage showing those same exact brands, and maybe just kind of put an annotation in the side and said, look, this is their homepage. Here's the URL that I got it from. You can go there yourself and verify that this isn't altered. This is consistent with all of their documentation. These brands are always listed in the header of every page. And is it worth it to try to paint the picture as clear as possible, like you're talking to an 8-year-old?
I wouldn't be against that at all. That's if we go all the way back to the podcast we did about Section 3s, this is one of the points that we brought up. We kind of have to do the job for the people at Amazon for a couple of reasons. Number one, yeah, we have to do their thing. Number one, and I'm not against this. I've got, I have a team in other parts of the world, but they're not US based. The people looking at this are not US based. They're probably not highly paid. I tell the story when I went through my Section 3 video interview. Like, there was literally animals, in the background. I believe it was a chicken, if I recall. Like, so that's just the way it is. So we need to really make it very simple to understand for someone whose language is probably not English as a first language. Uh, and then the other thing is how many of these are they going through in a day? Is it 50? Is it 100? Are they getting through 500 every single day? Imagine having to do that 5 days a week and just look at these documents over and over and over again. Um, so you want to make it like really clean, you know, nice and easy for them to see everything laid out. And then outside of that, we have to remember that their incentives are not aligned with ours. Like they don't get a bonus if they approve somebody and someone sells counterfeit products, but they can get dinged if they approve somebody and they sell counterfeit products. So the safest path is to say no as many times as possible because they're not getting a bonus for getting more people on a listing, but they can get in trouble for getting more people on a listing.
Yeah, good point.
What was the Fujitsu scanner model? This is a Fujitsu ScanSnap IX100. It is Bluetooth enabled. It is wireless. I can take it in the car with me. I've got a iPhone app for it. And I can scan directly to my computer, to my phone, wherever I'm at. I believe they make smaller ones now. If I'm not mistaken, I've had this. This thing is a tank. I believe I've had this since 2015 or something. Like I went back and looked at my purchase history. I've had this for a very long time. I'm not even sure if this model's made any longer, although there are still ones in stock on Amazon.
It's a good thing Apple doesn't make one. You'd be on your 10th iteration.
Come on, man. They make quality products, but they would not make a scanner because there is nothing really to upgrade. I mean, how many, are they gonna give me a 25,000 DPI scan head unit,
Well, they put a special charger that only they sell and
exactly right.
that
I'd totally buy one if Apple made one though.
Tell me something I don't know.
It'd look good. Although they do something really stupid, like put the charge port on the bottom of it, so I couldn't use it while it's charging.
Yeah,
that was dumb.
Yeah, somebody needs dinged for that.
Mad Moo Dog, newer seller here with very little free time. Currently debating getting a virtual assistant versus joining a lead list. Thoughts? So you said the thing that brings up a red flag for me about hiring a virtual assistant is the fact that you're a newer seller. So, and I'm going to assume here, but my assumption is that as a newer seller, you're probably not very good at sourcing yet. That is not an attack on you or your character or anything else. It's just facts of life. Will you be great at sourcing one day? Probably. I believe in you. But if you are not really good at sourcing and have it dialed in, should you really be teaching someone else what you may have as bad habits? Probably not. And the reason I say that is let's say that compared to Chris, let's say that you're 50% as good of a sourcer as Chris is. Well, you're going to go and teach someone else to source, and they might only be 60 or 70% as good as you are. Because you should never expect anyone on your team to be able to source as well as you can. There are going to be some who will outpace you. But for the most part, for them, it's just a job. And it's, they don't have the incentives are not aligned for them to continue education and be incredible and think up new ways to source and new ways to save money, et cetera, and so on. So I would imagine that your money may be better spent getting a lead list like oaleads247.com so that you can start recognizing the patterns of what makes a good product, replicating your ability to find similar products like that, working that sourcing muscle, and then you go and you scale up by hiring team members. That would be my opinion.
I have no notes.
Lounzinger, so with all the good ungates currently asking for 100, 200, 400 units, etc., do you know if this is something variable based on seller sales history? Like, could I see 400 and you see 10? Sure, it's possible. I just don't know. Now, I will say this. I'd love to know, are you gated in Nike at the moment? And if so, how many units do they want you to get ungated with? Because so here's the weird thing for me, Nike is a 10 unit ungate currently. That's how many units I would need to buy and get ungated with. But Adidas, on the other hand, is 100. Now, those are the two largest shoe brands, arguably the two largest gross merchandise volume brands on the entire platform. And there's a massive variable. But then something like a very niche tool product asked me for 300 units today. So like I don't know what the logic is.
And not to, I don't know, I don't want to pick on Lounzinger. I would question what the qualifications are. How does something become a good ungate? And I only ask that because there may be something revealing about that. Is it the well-known brands? Is it the brands that like Nike and stuff like that? Is that a good ungate? Because I would take exception to that because there are. I would argue that there is, and I don't have a specific company in mind. This is just a hypothetical, but I would venture to say that there is a random tool company that none of us have ever heard of that is available at a retailer, an authorized distributor of that tool brand, and the website URL is also something none of us have ever heard of. However, you can get 100 units at a time. It's profitable. There's low competition on the ASIN, and you could probably move 100 units a month for about as long as you want to, until somebody like me stalks you and shares it with a lead list. No, I kid. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm just afraid that you're framing it as good ungates. I feel like you're putting yourself under more distress than you need to. Let's put it that way. I think you're not quite fully realizing the riches and the niches, if I may.
Engineer, do you recommend sourcing from distributors such as Affirma distributors? I've never heard of them, so I can't tell you my opinion on them. Rather than direct from brands and selling on Amazon. Yeah, sourcing from distributors is fine. Would I tell you to do that over going directly to brands? No. My opinion is you buy inventory where you can buy inventory as long as it's profitable and as long as it's done above board and within terms of service. So you're gonna find some people who are gonna be like, oh, OA is the only way, RA is the only way, brand direct is the future, and RA is dead and OA is dead, yada yada. Not here, okay? Because the truth is every model works on Amazon. You can still even thrift and sell on Amazon if you're selling books. Okay. I would not go sell other items from thrift stores any longer, but books, right? Every single model still works on Amazon. It just depends what you want to do. So if you want to buy from distributors because it's easier to reach out distributors than it is to go out and reach out to brands and possibly get a brand direct account or maybe even a brand management deal, then yeah, do that. That's absolutely fine. Now, how do you validate the distributor agreement with the brand? The only thing you can do is ask. You know, I would personally be looking for distributors and suppliers that have been around for a while, that aren't some fly by night operation. They're not wanting to, DM me on Discord or make me join some sort of Telegram group or anything like that. I would be checking, do they have a better? I checked one for someone today. I found them on Better Business Bureau. I found them on LinkedIn. I found their website. I was able to see their actual location, and their location was in a commerce park. It was not, some double wide out in the middle of the Midwest in nowhere country. It was a legitimate business that had been around for a while. I was able to find some of their employees on LinkedIn. Like that's really the best you can do, because going to someone before you spend $1 with them and then saying, I really need to see the letter that you have between you and the brand. They're going to tell you to get lost, relationship ruined. So you have to do all the other things that you can. And then maybe once you've spent $100,000 with them, you'd be like, hey, you know what? It would be very helpful for me to know that you have a legitimate relationship with the brand, just so that if anything happens, I can tell Amazon. Then maybe that conversation comes up. Sound of Music. When storefront stalking, do you think it's worth keeping track of products that the seller is selling that I'm ungated for when I can't find a source for the product yet? I don't know why you wouldn't be able to find a source for the product. It's got to be out there. But now, perhaps it's just sold out or something like that. But I don't know. I find it difficult to not be able to find the product at all. But possibly you could, let's say you're using Seller Amp, for example. You could have a tag in Seller Amp for, let's say, no source. But it seems like something that would, well, see, I don't know if I would even do that, because if you can't find a source, you have no idea whether or not it's profitable. Yeah, I don't know if I'd take the time clicking extra buttons on those kind of things. You can always find them later on down the road.
Yeah, then he clarified unable to find it profitably yet.
Oh, unable to find it profitably. Okay. Thank you. So that changes the tune a little bit. Because it's not that it's not unprofitable. It's just not profitable for you yet. You've missed a sale. A discount code became inactive. It's a bad cycle for discount gift cards, that kind of thing. So in that case, yes, I have a little tag in Seller Amp, for example. It's close but no cigar. Okay. We've also got a solution that we're using right now to store leads, where I could go back to it later on down the road. I could filter it by source and be like, oh, I got an email from, I don't know, Big Bad Toy Store. They're running a sale. Oh, okay. Well, now I need to go and I need to pull up all those leads that weren't profitable at one time, and I need to go through all of them. Do they have it in stock? Is it part of the sale? Can I get a discount gift card? Is it profitable now? So yeah, it's not a bad idea to keep those things if it's just not profitable at the moment or doesn't hit your minimum requirements.
Yeah, and I think if you can actually get a system down to where you do that on a regular basis and you're active in that database and you're actively farming those leads, um, I think that's a great opportunity. Because think of how many times you're going to find a product. Like, sure, you can't get it right now, and on the Monday Night Sourcing Show, a phrase that I use all the time is apparently we missed a sale, right? And it happens, when you storefront stock, it just there's a turnaround time from when a seller buys it to when it actually shows up at Amazon, and it's reasonable to understand that the sale expired, for whatever reason, or the coupon code expired that they were using. But if you can actually farm those, so if you think about the typical graph, the Keepa graphs, what they typically look like, if they're coming onto the listing and you're stalking them, chances are there's a whole bunch of other sellers, right? So the seller count's probably rising. You can't find it profitably yet, but if you have a system in place and you're you're keeping track of promo emails using something like SalesGazer and kind of monitoring when sales are popping up, if you catch the next sales cycle, essentially the dupe for what you missed out, if you catch the next wave, you're probably going to be able to jump on it when the seller count's declining, because we know most sellers just don't do a good job farming their own database and replenishing this stuff. So you're actually going to catch it in a trough. And most of the time when the seller count decreases, the buy box is also rising. So you could, with a little bit of patience and a little bit of monitoring, you could actually make more money than the person that you stalked in the first place, depending on how you do it. And if you think about it, the leads that you just missed, if you could put a system in place, those are so much more valuable than starting from scratch, and just trying to source stuff, because you're only missing one small little percentage. Most of the time you're just missing a 20% off code or a BOGO offer that's eventually going to come around. So yeah, those are great opportunities in my opinion.
JP, when I've put everything I can for an ungate, do I start taking things out and keep renaming? You could try. See here, this is the difficult thing. Amazon gives us a pretty like they tell you, here's what we need. Here's the minimum that we need. Okay. That's obviously not what they're actually looking for, or they just have horribly trained their reps. Like we can't know for sure. So like you don't know what is going to be the thing that works. Is it going to be more? Is it going to be addition by subtraction? I would probably start adding everything in one by one. Like I try to give them the very minimum up front so that I can add in one thing on the next one and add in something else on the next. And then once you've exhausted everything, would I start taking things away? Sure, I'd give it a whirl, because you could always add them back in on the next one. So, and then things are different, you know. Yeah, I know that everyone wants here's the cookie cutter solution, and if it existed, I would literally write the blog post. But unfortunately, it no longer exists. Can we have a day to teach us how to train a VA? Yeah, I mean, I can answer that pretty quickly. It's going to be repetition and it's going to be Loom. My opinion is that when you teach somebody something, you make them a Loom video, okay? Give it to them, make sure that they watch it. Loom will tell you whether or not they've watched it or not. Take that Loom video and throw the transcript into ChatGPT or whatever AI that you like to use. Have it read the transcript. Have it watch the video too, if it's an LLM that will watch a video. Or if you have a paid Loom account, Loom will do this for you. Create a standard operating procedure out of the video that you just created. Give that to them as well. have them review it, and then have them create a Loom video of their own going through the process, how it works for them, speaking out loud what they're thinking about so that you can see where their mind is and then you can fix things. Um, and then it may take several times of doing that over and over to really train somebody, but that's how I think you should train people.
Yeah, and JP, from my experience, I don't know if this is typical or not, but honestly, the best training comes in the follow up. You know, which is what makes it the step that Chris talked about having them record a Loom as they go through it. You know, because how they interpret the information that you provided is probably going to, if you can smooth that part out, you know, and identify what the errors that, you know, or what you can improve upon or what they didn't quite get from what you're trying to share. If you can smooth those pieces out, those are probably the biggest jumps in production and efficiency that your VA is going to have. That's been my experience. It's been the follow-up questions. And luckily, I've got, well, to varying degrees, but I have one VA who seems to be genuinely interested in improving. And his follow-up questions have been the source for my most effective training for the other VAs that aren't even asking the questions, to be honest.
JP, how far along were you guys in when you guys decided to get a VA? I think I was like 5 years in. I was pretty far into it. Like, I know a lot of people, like, they start the business and like, I need a VA right now. No, you don't. First of all, I have a problem with delegation, and that's me. That's my own shortcoming. I will admit that 100%. If I want it done right, I got to do it. And yes, I've spoken to a therapist about it. But yeah, it probably took me about 5 years before I ever had my first VA. Matter of fact, she's not with me any longer, and she still reaches out to me every now and again.
Yeah, I think I went at least 2.5 years before I hired a VA. And even then, my first VA that I hired, he's still with me. And the poor guy, all he does is review TA scans. Like he doesn't even, I don't even let him set them up. Like he just goes, it's just view data. He just lives in the view data thing. And I just kind of pop different stuff in there and like, all right, hit your quotas. I don't know, but yeah, he hasn't had a mental breakdown or anything from the monotony.
Yeah. All right. We got one more question from Instagram here. Knowing all that you know now, I know nothing. So please don't accuse me of that. Knowing all you know now through ups and downs, would you do anything different? Yeah. I probably would have gone a lot harder a lot sooner, and I would have gone a lot harder and more risk on during some of the boom times. What do I mean by boom times? Well, when I first got started, it was an absolute gold rush. But I allowed my focus to be fractured. I was still doing drop shipping. You know, I was doing too many things. I really should have dialed in the business a whole lot more before as a newer seller, because it was easy. I mean, there was just money everywhere. You know, it was crazy. I did not go hard enough during COVID. That was again another time where you could have made money hand over fist, and like we did well. I'm not saying we didn't do well during COVID. Probably could have done 4 or 5 times what we did in COVID. And then right now, I think one of my biggest downfalls is like not having more systems in place. And in 2026, that's something that's going to get fixed, because we know enough to do retail arbitrage, to do online arbitrage. We know enough that we could add in wholesale. I'm just not interested in it. And I'm not interested in private label, but like we're at a point where we know enough that there should be a team out doing retail arbitrage. There should be, daily or maybe 2 times a week inbound shipments from local stores, and have OA a little bit more dialed in, and that's what 2026 is about. Um, but if I had to go back, it would have been systemizing much faster, learning how to manage so that I could build a team, and then going harder during certain times. And now, in my opinion, is another one of those times to go harder. Uh, the bar is still pretty low in terms of who your competition is, and the amount of people that are leaving and getting out of this because it's too hard is astounding. Um, like it's absolutely insane. I think I mentioned this to Chris the other day. Um, I was looking at all of the historical sellers on a listing, and I think there were like 222 of them. And I was flabbergasted by how many of them were no longer around. It had to be 40% or more of the sellers were no longer around.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they say about small business. I mean, we kind of, I think maybe, we caught some data, there was a lot of extra money around COVID. I think that was probably one of the higher peaks as far as new sellers coming on. That's when it kind of became the shiny object. um, might be the peak of, uh, and there's nothing against. I don't say this with any malice, but the peak of course offerings and how to guides and whatnot. That was probably the golden age for that, at least as of right now. So yeah, but so it would, I would imagine, when you think of like the standard rates for small businesses as far as like failing, Amazon was running above the mean for a very long time, as far
Mhm.
as, the percentage that there just weren't a lot of people failing, so I think that's just kind of a course correction. Um, so that would make sense. But yeah, and to answer the last question, I would have put more pressure on myself. Um, I got my proof of concept through COVID. Um, and it's like, what, so I knew it was a real thing. But I was kind of in that camp of the great resignation camp, like COVID kind of made me reevaluate who I give my time to and how much I value my own time. So I got a little complacent, kind of romanticizing working for myself and the glory of how much time I'd given myself. I kind of needed to take more advantage of the inertia of coming from a W-2 job, and the frameworks that you're given and the procedures and the routine and stuff like that. If I had put more pressure on myself and didn't have such a big runway, I think I would have gotten more done, which essentially would have had given myself more time to compound, and I'd be in a much better situation right now if I
Mhm.
had treated it more like a serious business sooner.
Let's see here. Loving the book from our book club. Honestly, gives so much needed perspective. Yeah, it is. It is a good book. I think I'm finally getting to the part I was hoping to get to today. Um, kind of moving from the theory portion into the how to portion, which is what I like. I was complaining to Chris about it the other day, and today I've turned a corner.
Yeah, you have to appreciate the timing of when he wrote it, which, yeah, I know I
Yes.
already told you when we had the private conversation about it, but when Cal Newport wrote Deep Work, not very many people were talking about what he's talking about. So
Yeah. Look, yeah, we do keep seeing evidence of sellers leaving and moving on to the next season. Yeah, everyone wants to go do something in AI. I'm gonna have AI build me a business. Make no mistakes. It's probably one of the best memes that's out there about AI. People will learn. Like their business is not supposed to be easy. Um, I I got to be careful not to hop up on a soapbox here, but like I don't know. I would not want business to be easy. What fun is that? What fun is not? And we don't get to go till a field anymore. We don't get to go, uh, you know, conquer other lands or villages anymore. And so, what do? We build businesses. Like it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a bit of an adventure. It's supposed to be hard. It's you know, supposed to require a little sweat equity, a little blood poured out. Um,
Mhm.
but that's not what people want.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, let's face it. There were a lot of people selling on Amazon that probably should have gotten a part-time job instead.
Hmm.
I mean, and it's not. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm not. There's no superiority complex when I say this, but certain people just don't have the mind for business. You know, um, that's just a fact. So you kind of get caught up in a slick marketing campaign or a funnel or something like that, and it sounds like a good time. Um, so there's a lot of people that are better off that have left the space, um, and are going to be better off for the fact that they got out when they did.
Yeah. All right. Now, saying all that, guys, yeah, we'll need to wrap it up here. But before we go, we'd love to invite you over to the OAC Plus community. If you want a place to hang out, you want a place to have a ton. Like we do a lot of education here on Sundays and Wednesdays. There's even more inside of OAC Plus. You get a community. You get some leads. You get some software in Storefront Stalker Pro. You get training in the OA Challenge replays, Wholesale Challenge replays, credit card points and miles replays, Amazon Influencer Program replays. Like literally anything about selling on Amazon, we've got it. Chris will be hosting his over the shoulder sourcing session tomorrow. We've got coaching on Thursday with me. We've just added Zach Altmeyer. If you don't know him, he talks all about discontinued products. Matter of fact, I had to go to Publix earlier today to grab some lunch for the family, and I purposely showed up 15 minutes early to walk through the beauty aisle, um, and start learning a little bit. And I'll tell you one of the side effects of doing what Zach talks about. I walked out empty-handed, no discontinued products today. However, because I was being more mindful, I did find some things that I normally buy that are like $30 for $2.99 because I was being more mindful. Um, but also, you get a community, a built-in community where we share your concerns, we share your wins, and everything, and we just have a good time. And then we want to offer you some protection as well. Now, not some protection in that we're going to go bust some kneecaps on your behalf, but we will write you a POA or handle a suspension for you, those kind of things. And we've got ASIN reviews. So if you need someone to look over your shoulder for something you're thinking about pulling the trigger on, you just open up a ticket, let us know. We will not source it. We will not go try to sell it. We're not going to scoop it out from under you or anything like that. We'll give you some real advice on what we would do in your particular situation. And then you go on your way with that. And we're just getting started. Like we've been doing this for I guess maybe 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months since we opened this back up. I laid out just a little bit of the roadmap last night after someone asked about it of what's coming in this quarter, and some of the other things that we've got planned, and things are just going to be getting better. So we'd love to have you join us. You can go to Chris. What's your link? I know you've got a discount code out there.
I do. Yeah, I'm willing to give up all my affiliate commissions to make it a little bit cheaper if you're interested in checking us out. You can go to oachallenge.com/plus. And here's the code. It's my last name, Racics Money, right? RACICSMONEY. And that'll chop about 20% off. So take my money and use it as a discount to come check out what's going to end up being the best community around. We're growing all the time. We're adding new stuff to it. Honestly, it's a really fun place to hang out. So, and I have to, because I'm a moderator there, but I still like hanging out there. I don't like when people tell me where I have to be, what I have to do, and I still enjoy it. So there's all the proof that you need.
Yeah. All right. And Deal Hunter, thank you. Your palms will be greased. Appreciate you. All right. That's it for us tonight, everybody. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back at our new time on Wednesday. That is 7 p.m. Eastern to do this all over again with you guys. Until then, hope you guys have a kick-ass start to the week. And let's go sell some stuff. All right. Have a great night, everybody.